Most fans remember Dawn Wells as the sweet, innocent Mary Ann from Gilligan's Island. But behind the pigtails and gingham dress was a woman who took real risks and sometimes went too far. From performing dangerous stunts against producers' warnings to secretly defying Hollywood's strict image rules, Dawn pushed herself in ways few ever realized. She wasn't just the girl next door. She was tougher than anyone thought. What really happened behind the scenes? Why did her choices shock the cast and crew? And how did those decisions follow her long after the island? Let's uncover the truth. From beauty queen to island girl.
Before she ever stepped foot on Gilligan's Island, Dawn Wells had already made her mark as Miss Nevada, 1959. Born in 1938 in Reno, she grew up in a conservative home, far removed from the flashing lights of Hollywood. After earning a degree in theater from the University of Washington, she moved to Los Angeles with one goal in mind: becoming an actress. But the first 3 years were rough. Dawn landed small parts in TV shows like 77, Sunset Strip, and Wagon Train, but nothing stuck. In 1963, her life changed when she auditioned for a quirky sitcom that few thought would go far. The show was Gilligan's Island, and the role was Mary Ann Summers, a sweet farm girl from Kansas. Hundreds of actresses tried out, including several rising stars. But producers were looking for something specific, someone fresh-faced, relatable, and kind. Dawn fit the bill. Her combination of innocence and wit won them over instantly. Gilligan's Island premiered on September 26, 1964, and by the end of its first season, Dawn Wells was a household name. Alongside Bob Denver, Gilligan, Alan Hale Jr., the skipper, and Jim Backus, Mr. Howell, she formed part of an unforgettable ensemble cast. But it was Mary Ann who fans connected with most. Where Ginger was glamorous, Mary Ann was real. Young viewers adored her, and so did their parents. She quickly became one of the show's most beloved characters. It's ironic. Dawn Wells spent years fighting for a break in Hollywood, but it took a 3-season sitcom filmed entirely on a soundstage with a fake lagoon to make her famous. In a matter of months, the girl from Reno became America's sweetheart. And while she would come to cherish that role, the success of Gilligan's Island also brought its share of hidden challenges. But while America saw her as the single, wholesome girl next door, Dawn Wells was keeping a personal secret that no one on the island or in the audience ever suspected. The secret marriage nobody knew about. While filming the first season of Gilligan's Island in 1964, Dawn Wells was living a double life. Off-screen, she was already married to Larry Rosen, a talent agent she wed quietly in 1962. The marriage was kept completely private, hidden not just from the press, but from many of her own co-stars. The reason? Studio image control. Back in the 1960s, studios believed that female stars had to appear available to male fans. There was real fear that if word got out about her marriage, it could damage her popularity. After all, Mary Ann was marketed as the sweet, single girl next door, the ideal woman for millions of American boys watching in their living rooms. Being married didn't fit that fantasy, so Dawn and Larry agreed to keep it quiet. It was a decision made for the sake of her career, but it came with consequences. The couple lived in Los Angeles, often apart due to Dawn's intense filming schedule. She worked long days, sometimes 6 days a week, memorizing lines, doing wardrobe fittings, and shooting complex group scenes. Larry, meanwhile, continued to work with other clients, building his own career. Over time, the distance and secrecy wore them down.
By 1967, the same year Gilligan's Island was cancelled, their marriage ended in divorce. Dawn rarely spoke about the relationship. She didn't give interviews, didn't air grievances. But in later years, she admitted that keeping such a big part of her life hidden took a toll. The young woman who made America laugh every week was quietly navigating heartbreak behind the scenes. It's a truth that casts her sunny Mary Ann smile in a very different light. But it wasn't just her private life that was tightly controlled. Even her wardrobe, the very clothes she wore on set, came with a long list of rules and restrictions set by the network. Strict rules and censored costumes. Television in the 1960s was governed by strict morality codes, especially when it came to what women could wear. For Dawn Wells, this meant that even though she played a beach-stranded character, she couldn't show her belly button on camera. CBS enforced this bizarre rule rigorously. Every bikini bottom she wore was stitched high-waisted, and every crop top was adjusted to make sure no navel slipped through. Dawn's Mary Ann wardrobe was made to look effortless, but it was anything but. The costume department spent hours tweaking fits, adjusting fabric, and pinning garments to avoid network censorship. Cleavage was also a no-go. Dresses and tops were double-lined to prevent any wardrobe mishaps. Meanwhile, her co-star Tina Louise, who played Ginger, often pushed the limits of what was allowed, and drew more criticism from producers as a result. Despite the frustration, Dawn never complained. Crew members admired her professionalism and patience. Unlike many other actresses of the time, she didn't fight the system, she adapted to it. In interviews, she later said she understood the era's restrictions, even if she didn't agree with them. She just wanted to do her job and do it well. In hindsight, these dress codes seem outdated and unfair, but they were very real, and they shaped how characters like Mary Ann were perceived. The girl next door image wasn't just in the script. It was carefully crafted, sewn into every stitch of her costume, and policed by censors with 1960s values. Dawn played the part beautifully, even when the rules behind it were stifling. But while Dawn followed the rules, not everyone on set shared her cooperative spirit. A growing tension between the show's two female leads would soon turn into one of its most whispered-about off-screen rivalries. Ginger versus Mary Ann. Although Gilligan's Island ran for just 3 seasons from 1964 to 1967, the tension between its two leading ladies, Dawn Wells and Tina Louise, became a long-standing Hollywood legend. On screen, Mary Ann and Ginger seemed like close friends stranded together in paradise. Off-screen, however, it was a very different story. Tina Louise, who portrayed the glamorous movie star Ginger Grant, reportedly resented sharing the spotlight with Dawn. Tina had been promised top billing and envisioned herself as the show's sole female lead. From the start, Tina's relationship with the rest of the cast was rocky. She often declined to appear in group publicity photos, refused interviews, and stayed isolated during breaks in filming. According to cast and crew, she rarely socialized and didn't build strong bonds with others on set. Dawn, on the other hand, was the opposite. She was friendly, punctual, and became close with several castmates, including Bob Denver, who played Gilligan. As the show's popularity grew, so did Mary Ann's fan base. By season 2, viewers began to shift their attention. Fan mail poured in, and it was overwhelmingly addressed to Mary Ann. Young fans, and especially parents, preferred Dawn's wholesome character over Ginger's more sultry Hollywood persona. This shift did not sit well with Tina. Some insiders say she began asking writers for fewer shared scenes with Dawn, hoping to avoid direct comparison. But it only made fans root for Mary Ann more. Dawn never publicly criticized Tina Louise, even years later. She took the high road, often calling Tina a professional while carefully avoiding negative comments. In interviews from the 1980s and 1990s, Dawn confirmed that while the cast mostly got along, there were differences in approach. It was a classic clash, the bombshell versus the girl next door. And while the rivalry never erupted into open conflict, the coldness lingered long after the show ended. But being beloved by fans wasn't enough to guarantee future success. Once the island days were over, Dawn found herself facing a whole new challenge: escaping the shadow of Mary Ann. Career trapped by Mary Ann. When Gilligan's Island was cancelled in 1967, Dawn Wells expected to move on to more challenging roles. But she quickly learned that Hollywood had other ideas. For casting directors, she was Mary Ann, and only Mary Ann. Despite her talent, charm, and training, Dawn found herself locked in a cage of typecasting. The sweet farm girl image that made her famous now limited her options. She was offered similar roles repeatedly: innocent, mild, and simple. Determined to break free, Dawn accepted a shocking part in a stage production of The Owl and the Pussycat, playing a prostitute. The role was a far cry from Mary Ann's purity and aimed to prove she could handle complex, adult material. The reviews were mixed, but the effort was bold. Audiences were stunned, some offended by the contrast. Even fans who had loved her on TV struggled to accept this new version of Dawn. Throughout the 1970s and 1980s, she took guest roles on shows like The Love Boat, Fantasy Island, and Bonanza, but none of them reignited her career. She even dabbled in writing, co-authoring a book titled Mary Ann's Gilligan's Island Cookbook in 1993, blending recipes with behind-the-scenes memories. It was a hit among fans and helped her reconnect with the public, but it also reaffirmed her place as Mary Ann. Over time, Dawn made peace with her image. She realized that while the role had limited her, it had also given her something rare: lasting love from fans across generations. In interviews, she often said she'd rather be remembered as Mary Ann than not remembered at all. And in the world of TV history, being unforgettable is no small thing. Yet even as she came to accept the limits of fame, another personal storm was brewing. As the show ended and her career hit turbulence, her private life also began to fall apart. The divorce that broke her quietly. Behind the scenes of Gilligan's Island, Dawn Wells was grappling with a growing emotional distance from her husband, Larry Rosen. Their marriage, once a shared secret during her rise to fame, had become strained by the pressures of public life. In 1967, just as the show wrapped its final season, the couple finalized their divorce. It was a quiet separation, largely hidden from the tabloids. But those close to Dawn said the emotional toll was significant. The demands of the show had made normal life nearly impossible. Dawn spent 10 to 12 hours a day on set, 5 or 6 days a week. Meanwhile, Larry continued working as a talent agent, often traveling or working late hours. The lack of time together, combined with the pressure to keep their marriage secret from fans, slowly chipped away at their connection. When the show ended, instead of finding peace, Dawn found herself alone. She rarely discussed the breakup publicly, keeping with her deeply private nature. In the few interviews where she mentioned it, she simply said their lives went in different directions. Friends say she threw herself into work and public appearances to distract from the heartbreak. Unlike some stars who turned to gossip magazines or interviews for attention, Dawn retreated quietly into her career. The timing was cruel. 1967 marked both the end of her biggest role and the loss of her marriage. For someone who had built a brand on positivity and wholesomeness, it was a difficult reality to face. But true to form, she carried on with grace, never allowing her personal pain to affect her public image. In an era that often punished women for speaking openly about struggle, Dawn bore it all with silent strength. And just when fans thought they knew everything about the sweet farm girl from Kansas, she shocked everyone by performing a daring stunt that nearly ended in disaster. The stunt that crossed the line. While Mary Ann might have been sweet and cautious on screen, Dawn Wells had a daring streak in real life. In Season 2 of Gilligan's Island, she volunteered to do her own stunt for a jungle scene that required swinging from tree vines. The sequence was supposed to be light and comedic, but Dawn insisted on realism. Against the producer's wishes, she climbed into a rig and prepared to swing across the set like Tarzan. She wore a hidden harness, and the vines were secured by the crew, but the stunt was still risky. As the cameras rolled, she leapt, only to miscalculate the swing's arc. Dawn slammed into a padded wall, injuring her lower back. The injury was minor but painful enough to require 3 days of rest. The producers were furious, not at Dawn, but at the risk she had taken. One even told her, "You're not Wonder Woman. Don't try to be." Despite the warning, Dawn brushed it off with her signature grace and humor. "I may not be a stunt woman," she said in a 1966 interview, "but I'm not afraid of getting a little dirty for the role." Her commitment to the show and her character impressed the crew, even if it made them nervous. From that point on, she was more cautious, but her reputation as a hard-working and fearless actress was set. This moment was a turning point. It reminded everyone that Dawn wasn't just the girl-next-door type. She was a serious performer who gave everything to her work, even if it meant bruises and bandages. That toughness, hidden behind Mary Ann's charm, would define her for the rest of her career. As time went on, her physical stunts faded, but her connection with fans only grew stronger. Even decades later, Dawn's image remained etched in the hearts of millions. Fan love that lasted a lifetime. Long after Gilligan's Island ended in 1967, Dawn Wells remained one of its most beloved stars. Unlike many TV celebrities who fade from the spotlight, she leaned into her legacy with pride. Starting in the 1980s, she began appearing at fan conventions and nostalgic events across the country. Over the next 3 decades, she signed thousands of autographs and took countless photos in character as Mary Ann. Fans adored her. Men who had watched the show as boys often told her she was their first crush. Women admired her kindness and saw her as a role model. Dawn once shared in a 1999 interview, "I've met people who said they married a Mary Ann, and I take that as the highest compliment." It was clear that she had transcended her role and become a symbol of comfort, sweetness, and sincerity. Even in her 70s, Dawn made public appearances, always smiling, always kind. She reconnected with fellow cast members at reunion events and recorded interviews where she told behind-the-scenes stories with warmth and humor. While others distanced themselves from their TV past, she embraced it, calling Mary Ann the best part of me. She once said, "Mary Ann wasn't a character I played. She was who I wanted to be." Fans never forgot her, and she never forgot them. That lasting bond proved stronger than any film credit or award. As the decades passed, the world changed, but Mary Ann and Dawn Wells stayed timeless. But behind the joyful reunions and smiling appearances, Dawn faced a personal battle that few saw coming, and it would take the kindness of strangers to help her through it. The financial struggles she kept hidden. In 2018, the world was stunned when news broke that Dawn Wells was struggling financially. A close friend created a GoFundMe campaign to help her cover medical bills and basic living expenses. The goal was $180,000, and the page revealed she had suffered a series of setbacks, including surgery, debt, and housing issues. For many fans, it was shocking. How could an icon from such a famous show be in such a state? The truth is, despite Gilligan's Island's popularity, the cast never received residuals. Back in the 1960s, standard contracts didn't guarantee ongoing payments. Once the show ended in 1967, Dawn was paid only for the episodes she appeared in. No rerun royalties, no syndication money. While she worked throughout the 1970s and 1980s, it wasn't enough to build lifelong financial security. Dawn responded to the campaign with humility and gratitude. "I thought I was taking the high road," she said, "but I guess that road got a little too high for me." Within weeks, fans raised over $200,000, exceeding the original goal. Many left heartfelt messages thanking her for the joy she brought into their lives. One donor wrote, "You helped raise me. Now, let us help you." Though embarrassed at first, Dawn came to see the campaign as a gift, a reminder of how deeply she had touched others. It wasn't charity, it was gratitude repaid. And in her final years, it allowed her to live with dignity and peace. As her journey neared its end, Dawn remained fiercely loyal to the show that defined her, and the character who made her a legend. The legacy she fought to protect. Dawn Wells wasn't just an actress. She was a guardian of Mary Ann's legacy. She refused offers to participate in risque remakes or reality TV shows that would tarnish the innocence of Gilligan's Island. When other reboots were proposed, she insisted on respectful portrayals. "Mary Ann meant something good," she said in 2015. And that matters. When Bob Denver, Gilligan, passed away in 2005, Dawn was among the first to speak at his memorial. She honored his memory not with fanfare, but with heartfelt stories. She also stayed in touch with the remaining cast, especially Russell Johnson, the professor, until his death in 2014. Dawn believed their shared bond was something television can't fake. Even in her later interviews, her final ones recorded in 2020, just months before her death, she spoke with warmth and joy about her time on the island. She told fans, "I'm grateful every day that people still care about that little show we made." Her connection to Mary Ann remained unbroken until the end. Dawn Wells passed away on December 30th, 2020, at the age of 82, due to COVID-19 complications. But her spirit, kind, brave, funny, and humble, lives on in reruns, in memories, and in hearts. She wasn't just Mary Ann. She was television history's most beloved island girl, and a symbol of pure goodness in a world that sometimes forgets how rare that is. Dawn Wells may have played the soft-spoken, wholesome Mary Ann, but in real life, she was anything but timid. Her time on Gilligan's Island was marked by quiet rebellion, serious dedication, and moments where she crossed boundaries, sometimes at the risk of her own health and career. Take the now infamous Vine stunt, for example. Producers begged her not to do it. It wasn't necessary, they said. It was too risky. But Dawn insisted. She believed in realism. She believed in doing the job right. The result? A painful back injury that sidelined her for days, but also earned her deep respect on set. She had gone too far, yes, but only because she cared too much to fake it. Her entire career was shaped by that same intense drive. When others simply followed studio rules, she quietly broke them, like keeping her marriage to Larry Rosen a secret so it wouldn't ruin her image. Or wearing tight-fitting outfits that just barely pushed against the show's strict costume guidelines. Even years later, she refused to take part in anything that mocked or exploited Marianne's legacy. She saw her role not just as entertainment, but as something symbolic, something to protect. But going too far came at a cost. After Gilligan's Island ended in 1967, Dawn found herself trapped in that identity. Casting directors couldn't see past Marianne. She took bold steps, like playing a prostitute on stage, to shake things up. Still, the shadow of the island loomed. She never fully escaped it. In her later years, Dawn's challenges grew more personal. A quiet divorce, long-hidden financial struggles, and finally, health issues that shocked her fans. When a GoFundMe launched in 2018, the world realized how deeply forgotten many classic TV stars had become. But Dawn didn't complain. She said she was blessed, and thousands of fans gave back to the woman who gave them so much. Even in her final interviews before her passing in 2020, Dawn was full of grace. She spoke of gratitude, of memories, of how proud she was to be part of something that still made people smile decades later. Marianne, she said, was who I tried to be, not just on screen, but in life. So, did Dawn Wells go too far while filming Gilligan's Island? Maybe. But sometimes going too far is exactly what it takes to leave a lasting impact. She may have pushed limits, taken risks, and made choices that startled even her closest friends. But in the end, those very decisions are why we still remember her today. She wasn't just Marianne. She was the heartbeat of the island, and she always will be.